what's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check. This is your preview for, I'm going to call it Nxt Deadline, because fuck putting the WWE on there, and that is Jake fucking DeMarco. What's going on, buddy?
Woo! Oh my God, bud, am I excited for this show? I can't state, like, I'm always anticipating and looking forward to PLEs, and it's been fun the way they've set them up in the schedule this year, especially with how things have been handled with NXT, and it's been
all killer, no filler.
Yeah, exactly, no filler, and it's been just very well scheduled in advance. Everything feels very, very meticulously planned out. And again, it's like, oh, well, there's nothing between this and Survivor Series and the Rumble. What do we, those kind of things. And it's like, well, that's why thankfully we have Saturday night's main event and this show. And
I think the biggest success they've had is they've rebranded NXT again, and I've heard a lot of people say, oh, this is the fourth or fifth time they're going to rebrand it. Is this the time that it's going to work? Which I think is a little short-sighted. But I think what this version of NXT has more than anything else, we talked on the last pod. I should say we did a State of Wrestling literally yesterday. So if you're listening to this, go back one pod and listen to that as well. We got very excited about a lot of stuff. NXT has successfully become the grab bag in 2024. And what I mean by that is they've got their own stacked roster. At any given time, you've got new people coming in. At any given time, you've got people coming from Raw. At any given time, you've got people coming from SmackDown. Right now, they have somebody visiting for a short period of time from Noah. I can't think of his name right now, unfortunately, off the top of my head. And NXT was the ground zero for the working relationship with TNA. So it's the most anything can happen brand of WWE. And I think that unpredictability carried it through, even when there was, because not everything's great, not everything hits. It's NXT. It has the hit rate of not all the time. But I think because it's always a grab bag, people are always willing to tune in next week, and it's like, okay, last week might have shit the bed, but this week we'll probably make up for it.
And I think you're talking about Marufuji, is that?
Yeah, the one,
Marufuji to make his debut.
I was going to say the gentleman that is tag teaming with Josh Briggs, because Josh Briggs went over to Noah not that long ago for, what is it, the N1?
Yeah, so
the idea of him going on excursion is the word I was looking for. The fact that he went on excursion over there for a bit, and now this fella is, I'm just gonna say this guy because I don't want to like butcher his name, but now
because Noah's where we got the Nakamura Muta match, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But AJ Styles also went over there. But I mean, they sent Josh Briggs.
I'm sorry, I die every time I think about that, just because of the post interview where you had Great Muta basically calling him the F slur because he kissed him on the mouth with the poison mist. He's like sucked the mist out of his mouth to spit it in his own face.
Oh dear.
So yeah, Nakamura in a great reversal. Like a lot of people were like, ugh, but I thought it was a great. Like he took the mist from him and blew it in his own face to defeat.
And that's why he's now corrupted.
And the new champion. So
there you go. But I just think this is a cool little thing. And no, they're not gonna. It's not gonna be Forbidden Door as much as I've made the Worlds Collide jokes 100 times. But like they sent Josh Briggs out there, and he was gone for quite a bit on excursion. I guess I don't know what the technical definition of excursion is, so I'm losing that term loosely before somebody gets at me in the comment section. But now it feels like he's made a partner over there. He's brought him back, and now that guy's having his excursion to NXT.
I mean, the Merriam-Webster says it's a short trip or journey, especially one engaged in leisure activities. So
there you go. Well, leisure activities can be beating the crap out of you, but even like Shawn Michaels, before he even showed up, Shawn Michaels was putting him over huge. Can't wait for you guys to see what this guy can do. So I think that's pretty cool. It's not, like I say, it's not going to be Forbidden Door. The TNA stuff is going to kind of come and go. The fact that they've gone triple shot with the new additions to the women's division that we've been talking about for the past couple of months, and they're a lot more fluid with people visiting from the main roster. Corbin did it and sort of reinvented himself. Becky Lynch had a period of time where she basically took the women's title from NXT and treated it like a proto mid-card title on Raw, which I have to believe was the catalyst for the women's North American, women's US, and women's Intercontinental titles, because she showed two women's titles.
Kind of felt that way. I mean, really.
But I thought it was so cool because she could be the head of one division and introduce introduce that same title in a different place and give it a different purpose, and she was given shots to people like Natalya, people like Tegan Knox, who's unfortunately no longer with the company, people like Indy Hartwell, same kind of thing, but also because she fought with Lyra, like, sort of respectfully, and then Tiffany, like, disrespectfully, and how much better are those two by the experience, even though they were already great to begin with. But I think NXT is in a great spot, which brings me to one thing that I'm probably the only one that gives a fuck. Look at that logo for Deadline and tell me why it doesn't say NXT Deadline.
Yeah, and that's an incredible thing.
I don't know how to feel about that.
I don't know if it's good or bad, just incredible.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because it took me away. I'm working on the thumbnail right now for our preview over, we're going to be live after Deadline this weekend on my channel. My little cheap plug finally. And
everybody's go subscribe to Jake. He's awesome. He's helped us a lot. Let's go show him some love.
We're going to have a great time over there into somewhere, the official Deadline review. And the reason I'm saying this is that it's like you said, I think more people care than you actually realize about this. I didn't notice it at first, and I was throwing it together, and I'm like, wait, it doesn't say NXT anywhere. And I didn't know if it was just the render I was using, so I went back through and I'm looking, and I'm like, no. If you look at the listing on WWE.com, on Wikipedia as well, it's called... And the thing about it is, I don't know that it means anything. I just know that my initial gut reaction to it was no. Don't do that. Yes.
Yes, the main roster and NXT are more fluid now than they've ever been in a positive way. Look at the two guys running the respective levels and whatnot. So NXT is more conducive to the WWE machine now than ever, but I still want it to have that its own corner. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense, because saying WWE Deadline, I didn't care, and I understood with the brand split, especially years ago when they were like, the Raw exclusive pay-per-view, Backlash. Yeah. Or it was SmackDown at that
But they
time,
never had their own identities like NXT did.
Exactly. So NXT has had, and you took the words right out of my mouth, its own identity.
It still does, I think.
I told you how excited I was in the beginning of this pod, looking forward to the PLE to begin with, and then they went ahead and hit us with that ending, and it was like... a cliffhanger of all cliffhangers, especially with so many implications, and I was like, well, damn, they just turned my excitement from a 9 to an 11. Yeah. So
I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'll say it right off the bat. I'm saving the men's Iron Survivor for the last match we're gonna talk about, but I am surprised.
Of course.
I am surprised that they didn't put Axiom in there and they put in Eddie Thorpe because of the stuff that's gone on the past couple of days. Ava selling a door better than anybody in AEW sells anything is a good story point. Interesting stuff. If I got a criticism, the women's Iron Survivor didn't need any more plugging, and it didn't need a 2-minute promo from Roxanne Perez that really only existed to be interrupted. The women's division hits all the time, but I feel like they just, like, the show ran a bit short, and they needed to fill 2 extra minutes. It kind of didn't do anything.
Part of it was I genuinely was already set and sold on the women's. I didn't need anything else to be said. Yeah. So having that, I was like, it doesn't, I don't know. Like you said, it just wasn't needed when there was other things they could have touched on.
Yeah, I guess they needed to space it out because of the cliffhanger at the end. They needed to get whatever... Like, we needed something to cut away from, to be like, oh my god, we got to cut away from this, guys. There's something happening in the back. I guess they needed something to cut away from, and that's a good reason. It's just not a very strong one, I don't think.
Yeah, it's not, unfortunately, but
the ladies are going to kill it this weekend. The ladies are going to kill it. The undercard is going to kill it. The stipulation that other than the Iron Survivor itself, the other one that started off as a really goofy thing led by Shane McMahon, and then NXT got their hands on it and fixed it. Lola Vice, Jada Parker, NXT Underground. This is going to kick ass.
Oh, this is going to be just... Whew. This is going to be something special. I am excited, honestly. I started to mention this to you earlier. This is one of the ones where I might be throwing a bit of a curveball for you. It kind of goes back and forth with it, and with everything else that we're seeing between Ridge and the men's side, the women's side of the Survivor non-Survivor matches. So we got Ava saying that they're going to have a hardcore match at 2300, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from there we had Jada, she gets her with the brick, and Dawn Marie was the special guest ref. So it was like, all right, there's more to this. And now this week, heading into it, I was like, oh, this is going to be a good match. Then they come into it, they drop the ropes. And
when she came out and just said, take apart the ring, it's going to happen now, I was kind of bummed it didn't happen right then, because that's that kind of like drop everything and this is happening right now. WWE, it's been fantastic. Go back one podcast and listen to me and Jake expound for like an hour and a half about how great WWE's been right now. But they are guilty of something that AEW is also guilty of in their earlier days. I don't want to know everything that's going to happen on the show.
No.
For her to come down and literally, like, the ring is a structure. The ring is also a metaphor for the structure of the show. Come on, take down the ring, NXT Underground right now. It was such a cool thing, and I wanted it right then. We're getting it at the pay-per-view, and I was almost, like, it's the first time I can think of in a long time that I was disappointed that they were saving something for the pay-per-view. You know what I mean? Like, I thought...
Yeah, I get that.
NXT Underground out of nowhere. I know I can't say out of nowhere, but it would have been awesome. It would have been really cool.
Talk about moratorium, huh?
Yeah, true. Like, the one time they tried to take NXT Underground out of the NXT building was when they did it at the UFC building for obvious reasons and tie-ins and all that kind of thing. I really want to know how this translates in a bigger arena. I'm excited because I think it's going to work. I hope it doesn't fall flat. I like both of these ladies. I wish Jada Parker wasn't with OTM, because OTM is such a non-factor on the show right now. Like, they pop up and then they disappear. So for her to be associated with a group that's only there half the time, I don't think does her character any favors. I wish she was just exactly as she is by herself.
I get that, yeah.
And it's not a dig at those guys either. I hope they find a groove. I hope they get into... We're going to talk about the tag team situation in a second. But, like, it's one of those... It's the good version of I don't care who wins this.
Really, at this point, yeah.
I know a lot of people are getting behind Lola Vice because, she's spicy and she gets out there and shakes her ass and whatever. And I can appreciate a good ass shake. Nobody wants to see me shake my ass.
Too.
I'm just saying.
No doubt, but there's layers to her that they don't have elsewhere. And here's one of the things that I wanted to really touch upon with these two. They were together at one point. They worked to take on Fatal Influence.
Yep.
And then they were kind of feuding with each other while taking on Fatal Influence. And then you saw them. They're like, all right, we're going to work together to take on, Jane and Henley. We'll do this at the premiere this year. I think it was the first.
I think so. Yeah.
I think it was the first.
Somebody
show,
will correct us down in the box below if they.
I'm almost positive. And then all of a sudden, backstage, they had that brawl, and that's what led into everything else. And it was like, okay, but I like that we're getting more to this and more to each other's story. I don't want to see. I'm choosing my words wisely here, and you hear me with a little bit of trepidation in my voice because I don't want to constantly feel like we're always shitting on AEW, and that's not the case. But I mean, we reviewed Full Gear fairly, and there were things we enjoyed. Here's the issue. The women there, and we've known it forever. So even when they started, people were already complaining about their division with Riho and, the knockoff Nia Jax that they had. And
sorry to cut you off, but here's what I'll say in the nicest way, right?
Okay.
Because we did review, what's it called, Full Gear, and I may have been inebriated, so that might be a contributor.
We may have been a little bit inebriated.
Fair. What do you remember from that show?
Nothing really that stands out great, sadly, and I
remember it as sort of like, well,
with Darby and him hitting the truck and all that madness because it was such overbooked chaos. Exactly.
Yeah, we remember a criticism. Do you remember a high point though?
I guess you could say the Ospreay match, but barely.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. I had forgotten about that, but to me,
But you really had to think. It
It's
didn't
true.
just jump at you. Yes, there really
But
wasn't
the
anything
way I
that
walked out of it
loved.
right now with and people know how I feel about AEW right now. I walked away from that show, other than like we had a blast doing the review, obviously on the live stream over on your channel that people should definitely subscribe to. But other than that, it felt like okay, it was a Sunday night and I got myself another slice of AEW.
Yeah, and that was the thing. It just felt like a Dynamite that with a crazy overbooked Dynamite ending. Didn't have
And
that.
way too long.
Yes, and you nailed it though. Way too long. It's the feel. It's everything. As where we don't have that in NXT because the women are women. They're not divas. We have Mercedes Moné and you had Statlander have a pretty good match at that pay-per-view as well. But yet it wasn't memorable. It didn't stand out, and it did nothing for either one of them. It didn't advance Mercedes, and it didn't help Statlander at all. It buried her essentially now. And here's the thing. They're divas over there. They go out. They have a 2-minute match. That's the piss break. That's the only match of the night.
But it's also token as shit. Like even like we mentioned quite a bit, the guys at What Culture,
who's the hot chick in NXT right now? Designed as the hot chick. What Fatal Influence? You could say they act. Henley. Nix,
I mean, you've got Nikita Lyons who's out there showing off her assets, but also they're not trying to tell you that she's the next.
But it's
champion.
Also like, oh, she's the big girl. She's the strong one.
There's
more to her than just her looks. What is anything more to Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa? Except their boobs. They're shaking their boobs at each other. Like it's all about them being, I'm the sexy goddess that no man can understand and take. And we had that with Mandy Rose, but even then there were layers and elements to it. With this, Mandy Rose held that title for over a year to lead to Roxanne taking it at Deadline.
You've got a great point, and I'm going to underline your point, right?
Please.
Look at somebody like Tiffany Stratton, right? She's great. We've
talked
talked
at her all day and night.
Well, true, but we've talked all day and night about like how she wrestles so far past like the Barbie doll gimmick that she's doing right now, right?
Yes.
So think about this. WWE had the Divas era to the point where it was the Divas title, it was the fucking butterfly, it was an eyesore, it was anti-progress, if you want to say it that way, right? Everybody was a diva, everybody was a Barbie doll, everybody was or most of them anyway. They've gotten so far away from the diva era that one person was able to pick up diva as their gimmick.
Yeah.
Like that's the ultimate thing. Like I would say like if they were still wrestling on a regular basis, you could do the beautiful people in WWE right now and it would work because not everybody is some variation of the beautiful people. The last version of the beautiful people that we would have had in WWE would be something like what, like Lay Cool or the Bellas, and now one of the Bellas has turned into Amber Heard. So like, what are they going to be, the Heard twins? No, not going any farther with that one.
She took "Watch Out for the Shoe" literally.
But think about this though, right? Look at this card. It's the first time in a long time in NXT, and I didn't realize it until I was just looking at the card right now. This is the first time in NXT in memorable recent history that neither one of the women's championships is on the line on the pay-per-view. Like, did you think about that until just now?
Yes, actually, but not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way.
Because I was heading into this,
both
but
titles
NXT didn't make me feel that way. So
no, exactly. Because here's the thing: we've got the Women's Iron Survivor that we're going to talk about in a second, and what's everybody scraping and fighting for? A shot at Roxanne Perez at New Year's Evil. When we get to that, I've got a thought about New Year's Evil as well, but I'll leave that for when we get there. But you can imagine, it's never been said. It's kind of like Carmelo and Andrade. I keep using them as the example. Even before LA Knight got involved, you kind of had the idea that these guys are having a really good feud. And you know what? Whoever gets the upper hand in this is probably going to get a shot at, say, the U.S. title or something like that, right? You got to believe, sooner or later, Fallon Henley and the Women's North American Championship is going to get thrown into this mix, because Lola Vice, Jada Parker, I could see both of them picking up that title, because none of them are like squeaky clean good guys. They're all kind of bitchy, and that could just work. And that's where you create the there's no good guys, there's no bad guys. Hey crowd, just pick who you like. And if you throw Fallon Henley in the mix between these two, I think she's the one at the disadvantage.
Yeah, no
Because
doubt
look
about
at
it.
the types of battles these two are having. Fallon Henley, I love Fallon Henley. I am so glad that they finally strapped her up.
Well,
But she's
no
not
doubt
having
about it.
matches
She's
like
earned
this.
it for years, and now they have, Lola Vice being showcased with her MMA background even more. We've seen
And
the
Jada Parker's a bit of a street fighter.
Yes, exactly. So this fits them extremely well. Where I will say the women's Survivor Series match that we saw this week with War Games was basically they got thrown into it just because of parody's sake. Like, there has to be a women's War Games. The men's called for it with the
I don't mind
feud
a
of the
random.
bloodline.
I
don't
did
mind
that,
it either,
yeah.
but I'm saying like it didn't call for the match type. The match type fits the underground match setting because she is a former cage fighter, real MMA fighter, and Jada's fought on the streets and worked her way up, and she's been brawling and having these hardcore matches, and this all just fits. It all makes sense. There's nothing illogical, like we were gloating and bashing about last night.
Yeah.
And I like being bashful and excited about these things. I got through the opening of Raw the same way.
But I love a story that these guys can tell because Fallon Henley's been there longer. She had a following like crazy when she was a good guy. Even though she's a bad guy now, we were with her for all the babyface story for so long that we're still happy to see her as champion. But Lola Vice and Jada Parker can look at her with the idea of, do you see how we beat the shit out of each other? Have you had a match like that in a while?
Yeah,
one of us is coming for your
exactly.
title, or both of us are coming for your title, or whatever. So I have to believe, even though it's never been said, that this has women's North American title implications. Maybe once again setting up for something like New Year's Evil. I'm going to go with Parker, but it's not because I want Lola Vice to win. I've just got a bit of a feeling in the gut for Jada Parker based on not much.
Okay, I'm going the opposite. It's
Cool.
from the let-go, I was saying Lola Vice, this really should be her match, essentially, with her. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I'd like to see this be her thing a bit more going forward.
It should be.
Like Riddle and, what the hell was
Fight
his
Pit.
name? Yes.
With Thatcher.
Thatcher. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thatcher slash Can. I couldn't think of it right away.
But the thing about that is, as soon as you assign one particular gimmick to one particular person, you can do it. It's
Yes.
absolutely fine. But then you also have the opportunity to tell the opposite story. Oh my God, can you believe that guy just went into a casket match with The Undertaker and won?
Yes.
Jada Parker can tell that story. I walked into this thing that was more Lola's world, and I was able to come out victorious despite that. So
I think that's why I'm so happy. Like, either way, it's gonna be good.
Well, this is exactly my point. This is exactly my point where you're saying, like, it should be Lola's playground, so she should win. I'm saying it should be Lola's playground, and that's why it would be awesome if Jada Parker would win. That's a good story, and there's no loser in that scenario either.
Yeah, exactly. So
again, I'm going to use
either way.
I'm going to use the example of Carmelo and Andre. I don't care or Andrade. Sorry, I don't know where Andre came from. He's a giant.
I heard Andrade, so we'll go with it.
But I don't care who wins. I just want to see. I want them to pop up another graphic and say round 9 is next week. Like, that's what those guys have earned from me. I know a lot of other people don't like the repetition.
Yeah.
Exceptions make the rule, and they're proving themselves to be an exception. And now they've got Shinsuke Nakamura to chase, and he's a Sith Lord, and it's fine.
And he's just out there, wrecking shop. And that's the thing. How great would it be to have him come back and defend that title on an NXT show? Would you be for that?
I would. I can't even think. Because Obafemi's still the. No, he's not.
No, he's not anymore. It's Big Tony D.
It's Tony D.
Yeah.
Why did I forget that? I think if Shinsuke Nakamura.
Because it feels like Obafemi's title still.
Yeah,
in a
it
way.
feels like he's a champion even when he doesn't have a belt. I'll do credit
And
to him.
his coming back, he looks incredible. So holy scary.
Imagine if Shinsuke Nakamura does a U.S. title open challenge on NXT. It's his first time in NXT, and God knows how long, and Obafemi answers.
Right. I mean,
and that's his like low key call up to SmackDown.
That would
I'm not saying I want Nakamura to lose this quickly. I'm just saying it would be a really cool moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of the opposite,
talk about incredible.
Speaking of the opposite of really cool moments, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that the first half of No Quarter Catch Crew having a really good night this weekend is they're going to grab those tag titles off Frazier and Axiom.
Yeah, it really feels like this is what's happening, and I mean, they've had this sense of contention between Fraxium for a while now.
Yep.
So I've subsequently hated and loved what they've done with the tag division all in the same breath. So they have set up the tag division in a great way. You have a bunch of teams that are hungry. They want to fight and vie for the titles. They're mad that the tag champs are going for singles glory while currently the tag champs. But it's not.
And it's a lot of big guys right now. Like NXT gets a lot of praise for their women's division and like the high flyers, like the Javon Evanses and the Wesleys and the Frasers and the Axioms. But look at that tag division right now. There's a lot of big beefy dudes in there. We never properly got to have a chance to talk about this because I would have done it a couple weeks ago and then shit got away from us. What do you think about this it's not out of nowhere, but like storyline wise out of nowhere? Ava basically calls all the tag teams into her office and gives them a mutual kick up the ass, and then they just beat the fuck out of each other for 3 weeks. They have a battle royal. Fraser and Axiom are taking on Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights, and it's another one of those scenarios. It's not quite Chase U-esque, and that's a whole other story altogether, but it is kind of I wouldn't have predicted them to win, but I'm kind of glad they did. Because they are machines in the ring, and they need something to do other than just, follow Charlie Dempsey around.
Yeah, no kidding. And so it was Ava's fault, too, because Fraxium said they wanted to defend the titles, and it makes her look intentionally incompetent, like she's over her head, like she's doing well, but she's still like barely floating at times, and I like that. I like that it doesn't make her look truly incompetent, it just makes her look like she's struggling but still succeeding, like she's growing, she's showing character change. And I love the way that, like you said, she's
not hitting every ball, but she's out hitting her coverage.
Because she said, I'm going to find you guys opponents, don't worry. 3 weeks later, we were kind of like, all right, who are they going to face? What's going on here? And we had our Battle Royal, which was a great way, because not having a set tag team is what led to the tag teams coming out and having the chaos for weeks. So it was a great setup to
and it was a fun Battle Royal, too.
Yeah, now they have this shot. They haven't been taken seriously in some time. I mean, Tavon Heights and Miles Bourne, they're great in the ring together. I have no qualms about NQCC taking this, and I don't think they'll have the titles long, certainly, and it sets up a good kind of like a face team to come in and grab them.
Oh yeah,
but
for sure.
There are what I love many
about that Battle Royal as well is. You've done a good Battle Royal or a good Royal Rumble or a good multi-person match when you get 3 things out of it, at least. You can get more. Obviously, the Rumble tells like 100 stories, whatever. Here's the thing. You gave the shot to 2 guys that nobody was really expecting, but nobody's really pushing back against. So here's hey guys, we haven't given you very much. Surprise us. Maybe we'll get more into you as you build your championship reign. There's your number 1 story. You've solidified people's following of Hank and Tank. When they win the tag titles, that probably will be at a big event. I'm saying give Hank and Tank the tag titles at Stand and Deliver. Oi oi oi.
I'm all for that.
And the third is, as you say, I can't pronounce the guy's name, but the guy that came back from Noah with Josh Briggs and their first outing as a tag team. I really want to see. It doesn't have to be to the title right away, but I really want to see where that team goes because it's such a interesting story. Like the interweaving between the companies is always going to be some kind of an interesting conversation. But like for a first outing, they went into a ring full of big dudes and trucked a bunch of big dudes.
Absolutely.
And then, I mean, got Gallus in there. You got the family in there. They got chucked around like empty tracksuits. They're really good at that, especially Stax. But yeah, I figure with a Battle Royal, any kind of multi-person match like this, even on the other side, some of the casino gauntlet variations, if you give me that many people and I can pull at least 3 story strings out of it, I figure that's a pretty good indicator that it was a good Battle Royal. And it was fun.
Absolutely.
Because NXT, even when the wrestling isn't great, NXT's got characters. And if you got characters, you got fan investment. And if you got fan investment, people are going to have a good time.
You're spot on. So I think you and I do agree on this one that
No quarterback screw?
Yeah, Fraxium's losing.
So I think they have half a good night. I'll put that in as a little spoiler there for later on. Here's something I want. Going back to the pod that you and I did last night, we talked extensively about New Day pulling rank on Big E and that whole heartbreaking scenario. I really think we did a good chat about that. So guys, more genuinely than usual, please go back one pod. I think we dissected the hell out of that from every conceivable angle. I would love the first thing this new heel New Day or heel Woods and Kofi does is they burst back onto NXT and just start bullying a bunch of teams on NXT.
Oh yeah.
Be like, you guys are the little guys, we're the fucking stars, we're gonna make it, we're gonna prove it, da 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 da. You know, they go in and like I don't know, they slap Trick Williams or something like that. I want them to do the biggest little man mentality. Like, they know they're in shit on the main roster because what they did is going to resonate over the course of Raw and SmackDown, but they'll go down to NXT to make themselves feel big and smack the kids around. Exactly. I don't think that's going to happen. I really wish it would. Can you imagine, with the way people are feeling about these two teams, Woods and Kofi at a major NXT show taking on Hank and Tank?
Oh, yeah.
Be a lot of fun. And those are big dudes, and they could chuck them around like empty tracksuits. Yes, I used it twice. It has nothing to do with this pay-per-view. I just thought, like, immediately off the back of Raw, them coming down and bullying some new teams on NXT would be, like, the next best thing to, ripping Big E's heart out of his chest, which was done exceptionally well. We talked about it a lot. Go to the last pod. But yeah, and you got to imagine as well, either the Motor City Machine Guns or the Lucha Brothers would be here if Tony Khan wasn't a cunt. Obviously, this is going to feed into the men's Iron Survivor. It's another reason why I'm kind of surprised that they didn't put both of them in it, because them losing the titles and then getting a chance to fight each other the same night. Imagine they were entrant 1 and 2. I think that's a story direction that they could have gone. Clearly, they're not. I think Axiom's going to be so wound up from the loss of the tag titles, he's going to fuck with Frazier in the match in some way. I don't know, because they do still count disqualifications when they do the points in an Iron Survivor. I don't know how that's going to happen, but there's no way in hell that whatever the result of this match is going to spill into what I'm predicting is going to be the main event.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's decidedly not a main event? I don't hate Ridge Holland. I think they're doing some really creative stuff with him, but this is not a pay-per-view main event title match.
It doesn't have that feel to it. Ridge is a bastard. He's a great heel. There's so much great heel work going on here. Him coming out with the Chase U banner and everything, and
oh my god, that was
disbanding
good,
them the week before, and now possibly having a heel Chase U because of it. With this new iteration that Andre's bringing about, like you said, so many different. Again, I think that's the word of the day. We'll go ahead and steal a little Pee-wee-ism for it. Word of the day, is layers. And there's many layers to this, and that's the thing I like about it. Ridge is a prick. He is a great heel. Problem is, he's a newly established heel. It's too soon for him to go against Trick, because it's like, oh yeah, Trick's going to kick his ass. I mean, they could do something massively surprising. Imagine he beats Trick here. That would be, the implications are massive, but I don't think that's even in a shock decision a proper decision. So
I don't think they will, and the fact that there's no way I see him, if there's bullshit, obviously, then it'll be bullshit and we'll call it, even if the bullshit is good.
Yeah.
But if there's no bullshit in a straight up match, I don't see him winning. I don't see him as a believable challenger, so that on that side I'm not invested in it. And with all due respect to Trick Williams, who is a character that jumps off the page usually, he doesn't seem like a guy going to the pay-per-view to defend his title. He's sort of like avenging Chase U. in a way, because he had like really good rapport with Andre Chase at various points. All his promos have started off with, nobody wants you here. This is not what NXT is supposed to be. We all hate you for what you did to Chase U.
Yeah.
I want
they beat Dudley and Trick. It doesn't even feel like he has that win over him. The momentum is really lacking.
Well, that's
here.
the thing. The promos have been slanted. I get it as a building block. Like, Trick Williams is a good guy. He saw something bad happen to other good guys. Touch on that.
Yeah.
But don't go out there feeling like an avatar for a group that doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see him come out in a Trick U shirt. Like, I want him to walk out there like a badass who's running the brand with the title, with that brand new beautiful belt on his shoulder. And it's the only world title match we have because Roxanne's not defending on this particular night. I want him to be a little bit more than, gee willikers, guys, I'm going to stick up for all my buddies. I don't want to be saying that about Trick Williams. And I do want good things for Ridge. Ridge has had a lot of shit happen to him, and there's a lot of good ideas at play here, which is the other frustrating thing. I just don't think they picked one properly.
Not yet.
Like, they're continuing the Ridge versus Chase U thing with Ridge and Trick because Chase U doesn't exist anymore, whereas it should be, I'm Ridge Holland, I'm a fucking badass, I'm a rugby player, you only played football or whatever the fuck he said. Like, I'm coming for your title because I'm going to be the champion, and it doesn't feel like that. Like, personal issues draw money, I get it, but it's somebody else's personal issue.
Yeah, exactly, and that's noticeable. And as you said, and I said, building blocks, however you want to classify it as, it just doesn't have the established oomph. Like Nakamura, he may not have won, those championship feuds time and time again. So that's what kind of held my belief that he might beat LA Knight. But there was a possibility there. There was a feeling of a chance that it could happen for the sake of it. As where with this, there's not a scenario I can predict in my mind that would give us the outcome that they're presenting here.
Yeah, and the other thing is,
there's no way Trick loses the title to Ridge. I'm sorry, I'm not convinced, Spaz. I'm not convinced, and I usually can suspend disbelief and give them really, what they need to get it done. If I can enjoy AEW at times, I could really give NXT the benefit of the doubt, and this isn't it. Yeah, the match will be good, I'm sure.
The match will be great, and it's two guys that are really trying. Like,
and a lot of times,
and I know that sounds
AEW,
super condescending for me to say. These are two guys that are trying.
That has no story, Spaz, at all. We'll get these feuds, and especially on the other side, that have nothing to it. So at least there is semblance and telling of a good story here. It's just not biting, like you said. It just hasn't. They're trying. I'll give them that. They are trying, and it shows. Yeah. Trick and. Talk about a non-entity with Bischoff this week. I mean, he was just a leaning on the corner of the turnbuckle, nothing. But just having him there tried to elevate them to a more serious realm. Like, oh shit, Bischoff has to moderate. It tried to get to that level, but it just never.
But he didn't. And I will say, people that called it out, and I don't care. Like, they brought out Eric Bischoff for 5 minutes. Cool. They did a thing. I moved on. The fact that it wasn't anything didn't really bug me, but I can't stick up for it and say that it was something, because he didn't moderate anything. He brought them both out. He said how much he likes NXT. By the way, did you know that I created the NWO? And then he said some... I mean, grifter's got a grift, right? I respect the hustle. But he just came out there and he said...
that, and we beat them for 80... Yeah, it's just
83 weeks. But no, I fucking lost my train of thought now. Yeah, he didn't moderate anything. No. He said nice things to both guys, and then he stepped aside and watched. Like, he was an audience member with the best seat in the house.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I can't defend that. It didn't bother me, but I can't defend it. What I would love to see, honestly...
And it's not just because it's NXT, but the way they did it. And maybe if I cared more about this feud, I would be more upset by it. But at this current point in time...
Well, the thing, we nailed this down a couple months ago. I can't remember what show we were talking about. It's like, I would care if I cared.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. The only thing I can predict out of this And it's me fantasy booking a bullshit and not an actual match. And if Ridge Holland gets attacked by somebody, it could be Chase U, it could be Duke. Duke and Ridge is going to be a big dude versus big dude match at some point. Andre Chase needs to go away for a while and sell the loss and then do whatever he's doing next. The one I want to see, and yes, it's a typical cliche David and Goliath thing, I want to see Ridge Holland get taken out by Riley Osborne.
Ooh, okay.
Because I want Riley Osborne. It's another one of those things. I used to say it about Dominic Mysterio in the Judgment Day. Very, very different scenario. But it was like, oh, if the Judgment Day breaks up, everybody else will be fine. What are they going to do with Dom? Chase U is broken up. I'm pretty confident everybody else is going to be okay except Chase. Like, what do they do with him now? Riley, but I want to see the rise.
But it seems like Chase is going to be turning heel and starting a group without.
Yeah, he's just going to make another group
else.
and call it like Chase College.
Yeah, something. But it'll be a.
It'll be something. It'll be something else. There'll be a workaround. Oh, you didn't say this the right way. You didn't say I couldn't associate. Everybody.
It's just he couldn't associate with the former members. I think is what they're.
You can't associate with Thea Hale anymore. Well, she changed her name to Teresa, so now I can hang out with her. It'll be something dumb like that.
Yeah.
There's an acceptable amount of dumb in NXT. We've said that before. Out of all of them.
But would it really hurt anything? No,
not really.
That's why I'm like, okay, you could be dumb at this point.
But ever since. Like, he was a great part of the group, don't get me wrong. Ever since he went over to TNA and showed off in a couple matches and was eventually in the Ultimate X match, I really want to push for Riley Osborne as a singles guy. Like, let him go after Tony. It doesn't have to be, like, it can be babyface versus babyface. Oh, look at this spunky upstart guy. Okay, I dropped my title. Okay, I'll just go take out Trick. And then you get Tony D versus Trick. That I would watch the fuck out of. This one, I would care if I cared.
Enjoyably. And that's the thing, and you're not wrong. We're just not getting that currently. So
if it's a straight-up match, we know Trick's not winning. I think Trick's winning, or he's at least retaining. Maybe there's a disqualification or a no contest or whatever. Trick Williams is leaving with the belt, is the prediction we're going with, obviously.
Yes, absolutely.
If you were going to fantasy book a bullshit ending to this match, which is not something I would always ask you to do, in this case, if there's a bullshit, what's a bullshit they could tack on the end of this to make it worth putting on a pay-per-view?
So I would say Page gets involved. Ethan Page, and that sets up a feud of Trick and Page, and you can have someone else do a temporary match for the title with Ridge. You can even do an Andre Chase loses one more time and goes for the NXT title and really loses, and that causes dissension, but I doubt they'll do that. But quick thinking, of course. I see Page being the linchpin here because he's been involved along the way. I mean, he was Ridge's tag partner. He hates Trick. He lost the title to Trick. I mean, there's just a lot of, Trick lost the title to him. He got it back, and it's just this history between the two. And Ethan Page keeps popping his damn head up. It just continually happens.
He's in the Iron Survivor that we're going to talk about shortly.
Exactly. So I part of me is thinking, like, oh, I could see it going to Trick and Page again, which I wouldn't hate either, but I wouldn't love. Maybe they could even really do a triple threat, which is more what I see them going at some point. Because
with Ridge and Page and Trick?
Yes.
I'm giving you first gut reaction. Obviously, I don't think I want to see that match.
The only thing that would make me...
Story-wise, it makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, because... And then you see the fallout between those two both wanting to become champion, and that's their downfall. They could have both together taken out Trick, but because they couldn't, put aside their differences and both wanting to be champ, that's their demise. Because that's something WWE often goes to, those type of angles. I'm not so sure I'd want to see the match either. Like I said, this is just instant thinking. Yeah. I would have to go back and revise a lot, but that's kind of where my mind goes. Is that Page would be the one to be the linchpin in fucking Trick.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy about it either. So that's the thing. Like I think it just hammers home and reinstates the fact that Trick has to win this. Like there really isn't even a good schmaz ending.
The real problem on NXT, and it's not really a problem, is like the ladies in the women's division have been shining so hard, and we can come up with like 100 scenarios we want in our head, And it's
Yes.
actually the guys that are falling behind in that regard.
They are
and
now.
It has
they,
been for
they,
a while, yeah. My only
That's
thing
why
is,
I was like, an Obafemi would be a great one, but you have to be careful with him, you know?
it's true. I'm going to keep saying this until this guy actually lands somewhere, because we could always have Trick attacked by somebody new, really bang way to end the year for NXT. Is this where we see the introduction of Josh Alexander?
You know, I would like to say yes, but I don't see it happening. I just don't see
Technically,
it
his
happening
contract
yet.
with TNA isn't up until February,
Yeah.
but they're also working together.
They're working together
So
in such unison
I don't
that...
know that would necessarily be a bar to entry. Like, he's
Yeah, I don't-
being part of the Rumble.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't... Anything with NXT and TNA, which is also with the Riddle edition we've not discussed, is very bizarre as well.
Yeah.
You
I
get fired
don't want to
from
wade
one-
into that
Trey
because
Miguel
typically
is
stupid
one
people are
thing,
being stupid. Yeah.
but this is like a totally different...
Oh, I mean as far as like actually coming to NXT.
Yeah, no, yeah. I was just mentioning that because we hadn't discussed it yet, because it is a very bizarre series of events.
Never, in 100 million years, this will never happen. I want 3 shots in a row. Josh Alexander is a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble. Josh Alexander wins the Royal Rumble. Josh Alexander chooses to go for the NXT title.
Wow. That won't happen.
That will never happen in a million years.
That would be something.
Charlotte did it with the women's title. That's the closest we're ever going to get to that. But I would love to see that. We are behind this brand. It is a third brand. So much so that the first time that a debuting star in the Rumble wins the Rumble, he's going to go to WrestleMania and wrestle Trick Williams for the NXT Championship. And then,
exactly.
And then there's no main event for Stand and Deliver. Oi, oi, oi.
And you made a great point too. Oi, 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 indeed, because
then the ladies main event Stand and Deliver with like a 100-woman battle royal.
Well, here's the thing: in the Iron Survivor Challenge matches, pretty much every female feels justified and worthy, and as a shoo-in to become the next champion. As where the men's, I have less of. A lot of them are like building stars, or there's a few questionable what if scenarios, but no one's really like.
Here's what I want to say about this before we get into the Iron Survivor matches. As we know, as the Iron Survivors have always been, the Iron Survivor has always been to determine a number one contender for a title at NXT New Year's Evil. Now, if I'm looking at Wikipedia, NXT New Year's Evil is a link. That link does not take you to NXT New Year's Evil 2025. It takes you to a history page. And that history page ends in 2024. There is no entry for NXT New Year's Evil 2025 yet, which lends more credence to what I've been saying for a couple of weeks now. Are they going to make NXT New Year's Evil a proper pay-per-view and have NXT not only end the year on their pay-per-view, but also begin the year on their pay-per-view?
Yeah, exactly.
Because here's the thing. If they do NXT New Year's Evil and it's just the elevated weekly episode of NXT like it's always been, which is fine, but it means that you don't necessarily have to have a superstar winner of the Iron Survivor because they're getting a shot on the weekly show. It's not to set up. It's not the Rumble.
Yes.
It's not to set up the next pay-per-view. So it opens the door a little bit more for what do you want to say, like lower tier challengers getting their shot. Very much Bob Holly getting his shot at Brock Lesnar because people are there for the Rumble.
Yes.
That kind of idea. So I don't think
just have to do it because people are already there in the building. Yeah.
With that being said, I don't think any of the new looking at the women's match first. I don't think any of the new 3, Stephanie Vaquer, Zarya, and Julia, I don't think any of them are winning.
Yeah.
I don't think, because you want a really, really feel good thing.
So, really
Sol
quickly.
Ruka
Hold on 1 second. Before we get into the Survivor Challenge, I had somebody ask me the other day, and like, how does this work? So I just want to go over it super quick because it is still something new. So really quickly, Iron Survivor, there's your elevator pitch. 5 wrestlers compete in the match. It's a timed 25-minute match. Mm-hmm. So 2 wrestlers start, timer begins. Every 5 minutes, another one joins the fray up until the 15-minute mark, because then the last 3 competitors have entered. Yeah. Every time a wrestler scores a pinfall, submission, if they get disqualified, if anything that would count
it out,
they get a point. So every time a point is gained, it counts towards your final score, and these points can be gained even before all participants have entered the match, which is very interesting. So if a wrestler is pinned, submitted, DQ'd, whatever, they're sent to the penalty box. 90 seconds that they can't be earning points, and they can re-enter after the timer is over. The winner of the match, obviously the Iron Survivor, is the wrestler who gets the most points at the end of the time limit. So if there's a tie, we'd have a sudden death outcome, but each one gets their respective shot at the NXT Men and Women's Championship, respectively. So that's our quick little summary here. Great match, like a Royal Rumble, a Battle Royal, a tournament, and
it's like a Royal Rumble.
Round robin all in one.
Here's where I like this as a concept, and there's no other match quite like this in this regard, because in every other like incremental match, whether it's a Casino Gauntlet, whether it's a Royal Rumble, whether it's the Elimination Chamber, the person that comes in last is in the best possible position, right? This kind of kills that, because the person that comes in last is the freshest and they've taken the least damage, but they've also had the least amount of time to accumulate pins. The person that enters first has the best chance of getting the most pins because they've got the most time to do it. So there's not...
Look at last year how Trick won in just such a fast succession. One pinfall after the other. What was it, like 3 in a row that he nailed in the last minute of the
match.
Yeah.
But I like that it's not.
It like doesn't always come to the end. And
but it's not an example that like swings into, like, if you're 1 to 5 and 5 has the best advantage and like in the Rumble, number 1 is fucked. You got to go an hour. In this, number 1 is kind of in the catbird seat, in the sense of you've got the most time to play with. You've got the most opportunity to get pins.
Exactly. And here's the thing too, this match has to be pre-planned and booked in such a way, because of the penalty box, that you have to have everything thought out ahead of time, because you can't just say like, all right, I have this one get pinned here, and then they'll tap out then, so now we've got a tie, and we can, because now you just took so-and-so out of the match for 90 seconds, and if you need them to get a point later, they're not going to be there in time, and it gets tricky quick. And that's what I love about it. So many different cogs in this machine that could be broken down, so many gears that could get clogged, and yet it sounded so convoluted when they first announced it 2 years ago, and then they showed it to us, and I understood what they were going for, but I'm like, this could be another reverse battle royal. This could be bad. It sounds
people were comparing it to King of the Mountain.
Yes,
and here's the thing, right?
And it did not turn out that way. This is a mainstay that I would kill to see on the main roster.
It escaped. I want NXT to have something that's theirs. They just lost War Games. I want NXT. They're not even having their own logo on their pay-per-views anymore. I get where it is. Like,
rephrase. I could see this working on the main roster.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. When they announced this in the beginning, right? Like, it
Rewind.
was Shawn Michaels making it, and the first time around they didn't explain it super well.
No,
I was looking
that was part of the problem too.
I was looking at this and I'm like, it's like a Royal Rumble, but it's got a time limit, and they got this and that, and everybody's like, oh my god, it's going to be like the King of the Mountain match. And here's the thing, King of the Mountain match is a little bit goofy, but you really got to know what you're doing in that match too to make that match work.
Yep.
I think it's a lot of fun. I wish they did it once. When they first went back to being TNA again, they did it once. It was, we're bringing it back. And I'm like, do it more. Do it a lot.
Because it was fun. And that's fun. The thing. We need fun every now and again. You need silly. You need
and TNA, more than anybody else, needs to show that, hey, we didn't just steal an idea from WWE.
Well, that's part of it. And it also shows personality. It shows, like, as much as I didn't like the six-sided ring, at least it was unique to them at that point. Yes, Triple A.
The thing I like about King of the Mountain as well is you have to make yourself eligible to win.
Yes.
Because you haven't You can't go because you have to hang the belt to win instead of getting it down. But you're not even eligible. I can speak. I swear.
That.
You're not even eligible to do that until you've pinned somebody.
Exactly.
I think that is such a cool, and no other match has that kind of thing. But
no, and it's so simple. It really is, but it
but
can't
people
be
make it
overstated.
out like it's goofier than it is, and then they use it against NXT when they came up with their own concept. When they announced this the first time, and like I say, they had Shawn Michaels in a backstage segment just reading off directly to the crowd. I don't
kind of
think
like what I did, but in a very piss poor way, as we mentioned. It was not.
He didn't. He
well
kind of
at all.
stumbled over himself a little bit because I think
it's a lot of information to get across. Yeah,
it is, and I think when you're asking, especially with developmental talent as well, and it's NXT, not everybody watches NXT.
And you're asking Mr. Goofy Eye to read off a prompter.
Oh, come on, don't do that. But like you're asking people to buy into a new idea that they've never seen, and this is me. I will give NXT every opportunity, but I heard him explain it, and I'm like, this is going to be awesome, or it's going to fall on its face.
Yeah, there really was like no
you really
in between.
You really had to be careful with the people that you picked for the first one, because everybody, it's like Hell in the Cell. Everybody remembers the first one, right?
Yes.
I mean,
it's got to be Kane, but you know.
But here's the thing, and then it had a whole separate.
But then Mick Foley followed it up by getting thrown off of it, and people always think that's the first.
Well, this is what I'm saying too. Is it was born in the Performance Center. They did it in the Performance Center because everybody was still in. If I've got my timeline right, they were doing all the shows in the PC still.
Yeah, because it was still 2022?
So it had a we would have still been in lockdown of some description.
Yeah, because the first one, like I said, was Mandy Rose against Roxanne.
Deadline used to be an elevated episode of NXT as well.
So
even if we were out of COVID, you still would have had it when it became a pay-per-view last year. And this is where I say it had a second hurdle to get over. Whereas
PLE wise, but you get me.
Yeah.
I like you being accurate for audience sake, because there will always be that commenter that says, "Hey,
I'm only as accurate as my memory, and my memory is as reliable as Swiss cheese." But my whole point is, okay, first of all, you're trying to explain people a concept that they've never seen before, and you don't have anything to show them because it's never happened before. This will either be awesome or it'll fall on its face. Exactly. Within the context of the PC, where everybody kind of feels like they're at home base, it did work. I liked it. It worked really well. There was room to like tweak it here and there, but I think they pretty much had a good concept. The next hurdle that they had was, okay, this works on NXT. This works on a weekly episode. How's this going to translate in an arena setting, in a PLE setting? And I think it's actually better in an arena, because there's a lot of moving parts, and it's very claustrophobic when they try to do it in the PC. If I go back and look at it now, I mean, you had nothing to compare it to the first time. The first time was proof of concept, right?
At that time, too, Sean was recent to taking over.
Yep.
We were getting out of still in the 2.0 thing, and all of it was just, NXT was not in a great place. It lost its identity. It lost to AEW. It lost its night. It lost its purpose for a little bit there, and it became this, hey, we're going to throw a bunch of unicorn vomit silly nonsense everywhere, and it's going to be cool for the kids.
And Von Wagner's going to go on a bike ride with Kyle O'Reilly.
And Adam Cole's taking a trip to, never mind.
And what was it? Zoe Stark and Io Sky are going out for Octopus. WWE's racist! Fuck off. Carlito needs to learn Chinese.
It's better than being Korean this week. I mean, if you really want to get down to it. But
anyways, carrying swiftly on. So if we believe, if I'm wrong, I'll be glad to be wrong. But Stephanie, Zarya, Julia, those title matches are being saved for future PLEs. This is why I'm questioning, is New Year's Evil a PLE? Because that's going to change my opinion.
I think it's gonna be, and they're gonna announce it very last minute.
Yeah.
1 and 2, I also truly believe that the winner for this match has already been told to us.
Oh.
I feel like they have already gone ahead and told us who's winning without anyone even really considering it yet, and that is Sol Ruka.
I want it to be Sol Ruka regardless. Like, we know Stephanie, Zarya, and Julia are going to have their moments. Ren Sinclair is an entirely other, like, cool success story. I love that people are getting behind her kind of the same way they get behind Thea Hale. because she's got that,
Absolutely.
not in the same way, but she's kind of got the same, like, even if you're in a dickhead group, we're still going to cheer for you because we kind of want good stuff for you. I don't think she's winning. If they solidify that this is like NXT New Year's Evil weekly episode of NXT with a different banner up, I could see them giving it to Ren Sinclair, one-off for the night, feel-good thing, see how she fares under a main event spotlight. Regardless of whether it's a PLE or a weekly episode, and we don't know yet, there's a part of me that wants Sol Ruca regardless. Because she's a lot of fun. And I feel, and it's sort of shitty to say because it's a newer title, but I kind of feel like the women's North American title is like an inch below her. Like, not by much. She feels like she's the title.
She's just slightly elevated over that now.
She feels to me like if they didn't get this triple bomb of Stephanie, Zarya, and Julia, like she would have been the first proper contender next for Roxanne Perez. Now we've got the big heavy hitters in there. It's kind of a different conversation. I hope it's Sol Ruca regardless, because Stephanie Vacour, Zarya, Julia, they're gonna be fine, and so they're gonna find their ways to title matches without doing something like this.
Yeah, they posted a video, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, and you've got Roxanne Perez. She's out at the beach, and she's just cutting a quick promo about how she's going to be, forever the champion. That's all there is to it.
Oh, yeah, and she was at the beach, and Sol Ruca was there because she's a surfer.
Sol Ruca runs by, and she's like, oh, funny to catch you here. And they're like, oh, Roxanne meets a Sol Ruca fan, something like that I think the title was. And they're like, oh, look at that, huh, funny. And I was like, oh, she's the next one. They're setting this up. They're just putting it in your head now to start to mull over, hey, we're thinking of her. What do you guys think? And it really makes great sense. All of it. Yeah. She's in a position where she wins this match. She's instantly established. Stephanie, Julia, you could say Zarya to a certain extent. I feel like she was a little bit less than the other two signings. But not, they really put them all on equal footing, I'll say. But I'm talking about in terms of like established name recognizability and in the eyes of the fans, like what she's got to offer. So I wonder a bit more if, like I said, I really could have seen any one of those three come in, beat Roxanne on their first night, and the fans would have been okay with it. And everyone would have been like, damn straight. Of course Julia can come in and win night one. Of course Zarya. Of course Stephanie, And people wouldn't have complained because it would have fit because they're a big deal.
Yep.
And that also means that, hey, they're really established with what they're doing right now. And I feel like it is so not needed for any of them to currently be going for the title because there's other stories and things to tell before they get there.
I think
they want to ingratiate them and introduce them more to the NXT audience. Keep building their name recognizability, their brand, their all that stuff, and then go ahead and have them soon enough. It won't be a very long time, but we're going to see that titles change hands. Like you said, stand and deliver, oi, 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 it's a coming, and from there, I think it's kind of a done deal. Like we're going to see the title change hands. Just when who is more the question.
Well, that's the thing. Like we're in a pretty unique, and this only happens in NXT because if it happened in WWE, people would shit their pants. People are really antsy now for somebody to take down Roxanne Perez.
And that's a great thing because it's showing people are taking to her title run and want to see her get beat in a way that's not the usual. Like, oh my god, I'm sick of this person. They need to get beat.
Yeah,
and that's great.
Okay, so you're taking it from the kayfabe point of view. I'm sort of looking at it.
You're doing it more. I'm doing
it from the outside of get that title off Roxanne Perez because she's overdue for the main roster.
Oh, absolutely.
That's where I was coming from. If somebody had what's her name, Julia had come in and squashed her on her first night in NXT, and then Roxanne Perez is still milling around NXT, that'd be kind of shit. Like,
Yeah.
we're okay with anybody and everybody coming and stripping her of that title. Like I say, somebody happy like a Sol Ruca, or even if they did want to go the ultimate fireworks, we're going with NQCC now, so the guys are going to get the titles, and Ren Sinclair, like anybody, do the Ellsworth thing. Everybody with two hands has a fighting chance.
Yeah,
people would love that for Ren Sinclair. First of all,
they would go nuts for that,
and they would celebrate Roxanne losing, not because they want Roxanne to lose, but because they would pretty much know at that point that she's going up
to the main roster. And NXT fans are a little more ingratiated to those things. And
your favorite isn't going to die on the main roster anymore. Papa H.
Exactly. It's a different time, and I mean, you look back at what we used to get, and you're like, oh God, what a difference in
Smiley Finn Balor.
Yes.
Never mind that. Smiley Apollo Crews.
Oh God! I mean, there's so many.
Smiley Jordan Miles.
We're not getting the faces that run out in a 5-on-1 scenario who are willing to get their ass beat in their hands, put in their pockets, and duct tape to a wall. We're seeing now.
And we're not dropping people on their heads on cinder blocks and using needles like that's an everyday thing to do.
Exactly. Anyways, we're into it. So I think anybody for the women could be the instant winner. In the sense of, like, everybody else has that name value. It's easy enough to establish any one of those three. I feel like the only outlier here would really be, obviously, Ren Sinclair, and that's only because of how everything else is being handled. But like you said, I could even see her, especially with the feel-good
Somebody knocks her out again
moment.
like they did on NXT, and she gets the winning pin.
Would you complain? I wouldn't.
It's one of those things
tell, and especially she's not going to get the NXT title yet, but she could. Hell yeah.
She's the character that could do that.
Yes.
Her or Thea Hale. Anybody else, I would put an ending because it's a special kind of ending and it works if it works. I would put it under scrutiny for pretty much anybody else. Like, you don't want Zarya to win that way.
No, certainly not with her character.
But with Ren Sinclair, I say it a lot, and I'll even go over onto the other side. Take somebody like a Willow Nightingale in AEW, who people are being horrible today.
Oh my God!
By the way. People need to fuck off.
Treating her terribly.
People need to fuck off.
Especially with the whole, women's tournament going on and her being the likely pick. They have been just shitting on her for everything lately.
Fucking
awful
some asshole, put a picture up of her, mid-match, and it's like, oh my God, look at her. She's half the bracket. I'm like,
yeah.
You're a dickhead.
You're real.
You're, okay, take it from me. I'm an asshole. You're an asshole, and you're not even good at it.
You
don't
even have to try to be an asshole. Yeah, exactly. You're just
don't be a dickhead.
Naturally an asshole.
But
sadly,
I don't think they would with Willow because she's also got that badass side of her. But if somebody clocked Willow and she went all cross-eyed and fell on somebody and won, everybody loves Willow. Nobody would care.
But if they just did it to do it, I mean that could be bad. That could be really bad. Yeah.
But somebody, and she doesn't have the newness of a Ren Sinclair. She's the
that's part of the problem,
doe-eyed first year in the company. Oh my God, I can't believe I stumbled into a win, and she would sell it oh my God, what the hell just happened? And you can be happy for it. And the only other example I can come up with really is either Smiley Bailey from 2014 or Thea Hale.
Yeah.
These are the ones that could get away with. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm saying I wouldn't care if it did. I mean, if one of the big three does win it, cool. I'm sure the match will be awesome. Don't want to take anything away from them.
Good
but it does hinge on, are we playing up to a pay-per-view or are we playing up to an elevated episode of NXT? And because we don't know that, I'm going to go the safe route. I'm going to go right down the middle, and it's going to be Sol Ruca.
Damn, you and I thought I was going to be a bit of a different pick for this one with you, but no, Sol Ruca. I'm surprised. And you know
Stephanie Vacour, Zarya, Julia are going to be in the mix when we get to Stand and Deliver. Oi, oi, oi.
So I want to give you a really I want to get you time to cook. So I'm going to give you my men's really quickly here. I want to hear your whole. I've been looking forward to this. So 2 days now, I have purposely avoided talking about NXT's show on Tuesday with you, and it was a good episode. We went through most of what we got so far. We mentioned the women's matches and how they got the triple threat and Ren's win and good night, but the conclusion was something else. So we've seen this story developing with Eddie Thorpe here, and he's really kind of been the main story, I feel, threaded through the last few weeks, and you've had this continued narrative of him versus Ava, and it's like,
I don't think he's been the main story. I think it's
not main story, but
he's been the main thing simmering on the back burner.
Yes. Like I misspoke, but like the main through line, like he connects to everything continually.
Fair.
And he's in the back. It leads to the tag teams. It leads to Deadline's Iron Survivor. It leads to the tag match. It leads to also Trick, and so there's all of it there, because he wanted a title match, he wanted a shot, he wanted and so on and so forth. He didn't get it. Then everything that happened with Ava getting taken down by the tag teams, but him being blamed for it. Now it's like, oh my God, did Shawn Michaels take him out? Did he hire somebody to take him out? Are we getting kind of a heel thing? Did Ava have somebody take him out? Did somebody just get pissed and do it on her behalf? There are a million ways to go with this that make sense and that add something poignant and useful. So it really, really can't be stated more than what we got here, that, wow, the Iron Survivor for the men is really a who's going to replace Thor contention. So Wesley, I love the guy.
Yep.
Great NXT North American champion.
Yep.
Love the heel turn. They've not done anything really since the two matches with the Rascals and what we got there. He's kind of been floundering, but he's a solid go-to. He's going to deliver. Javon Evans, the plucky upstart, the young man. He's 20. When's his time actually going to come? Everyone keeps saying he's young. It's he's got time. Well, he wants his time to be now.
Yep.
Nathan Frazier, we're pretty sure those tag titles are going to be lost. So now if he loses the tag titles, and how injured is he in that match? But he comes into this. Is the replacement his tag partner? We don't know. Is that the story to tell? Do they have that match first, and those two fighting leads to them breaking up later on in the night? Like, there's so many elements. So we add Ethan Page, the likely successor to Ridge Holland as the number one contender, the next in line, because they, as you said, on the men's side, have not established as much as they have with the women. What do we get? Who do we go with? Who's the replacement for Thorpe? My quick pick, if I had to gun to my head, I would say Ethan Page, just because of him and Trick's history, what they're trying to. I feel like there's just a little bit hanging there. The way they had their matches, he didn't pin Trick the first time, and then you had interference and the Punk angle, and there's not that true, definitive, clean finish to those two. So I would say Ethan Page. Sir, let me hear what you've been mulling over.
Okay. So, War Games. There's a really weird comparison here, right? They do the qualifying matches or the advantage matches for War Games. The women, the baby faces, get the advantage, so the men obviously got the heel advantage, right? Because they don't want to do something twice. So, apply that here. Two guys got taken out on NXT, or required medical attention, required local medical facility.
Good point.
Trick Williams got taken out, and by the end of the show, we found out, okay, he thinks he's good enough. He's still going to be there on the weekend. I don't think you have a second guy taken out at the end of the show, and he also comes back and just says, oh, don't worry, I'm fine, I'm good to go. I don't think you have two guys get knocked down and pop back up. I don't think they mirror it that much, right?
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Or if they do, he's ultimately the underdog in the match, right? So I'm going to surprise everybody. First of all, I want to say, before I get into that scenario, I hope the first three people in are Wesley, Javon Evans, and Nathan Frazier.
I hope it's just as I said too. Yeah, that was my prediction for placement too.
Just give me a match for the first 15 minutes or so that feels like an Ultimate X match without the wires.
Yes.
And then bring in Ethan Page to literally play the role of spoiler. Like, he's here to spoil all the high-flying
he's here to
fun.
stop their high-flying stuff, like he does so well, where he does, that quick little shin kick to stop them off the turnbuckle, and, he's a great foil to the Faces' fun time.
So in slot 5, there's two stories they can tell. oh my God, we saw him taken out at the end of the show, but he is actually here. Here's Eddie Thorpe. He's going to succeed amongst all the odds type of thing,
Yes.
right? With all the piss and vinegar of whoever attacked him, with all the piss and vinegar of seeing that the whole company thinks he did something wrong when he didn't do anything wrong, with all the piss and vinegar of his boss who's been ignoring him for weeks and weeks and weeks, he becomes the story.
Yeah.
Right?
He is the
place
story,
5.
yes.
If he's in the match, he's winning. My prediction.
Okay.
If he's not in the match,
I feel that.
his replacement becomes the story, and his replacement wins.
Yeah,
Now,
that's...
I've got a couple of ideas to throw behind you, right?
Okay.
Now, one is just somebody got taken out of a match. We need somebody new. We use this as an excuse to introduce somebody brand new. In that case, it doesn't have to necessarily make sense. It's just, hey, we found a suitable substitute. And we know WWE and wrestling in general likes to use suitable substitute in capital letters and in quotation marks, right? It would be a really cool way to introduce Penta.
Oh,
Who's free now. And immediately at the next proper... You'd have to tell me at that point that New Year's Evil is a proper pay-per-view. Because then you get Trick Williams versus Pentagon. What the fuck does that look like?
Really? I mean, what does that look like? Oh my God, that would be a what the fuck moment if there's ever been one, really, right? Okay. I mean,
so that's option 1.
Okay, so already you've got me intrigued.
Option 2,
yes,
is Papa Dwayne doesn't like what happened to his daughter.
Yes, a lot of people have mentioned this, and I was kind of unsure.
Makes a few family phone calls, and this is where we get the debut of Hikuleo.
That's stay with the bloodline. You don't have to have The Rock deliver, and
it's true.
I
don't have a whole lot of experience with Hikuleo personally. I saw him a little bit on TNA. That's about it.
Yeah,
I can imagine
I've seen him in a few
Hikuleo
matches,
and Trick Williams would be a fun match, but he wouldn't even be there for that. He would be the mercenary that, took out the guy that attacked The Rock's daughter, supposedly. And then Eddie Thorpe gets to come back as the pissed off babyface, and then he gets a rivalry with Hikuleo, and
it makes a good deal of sense, too. That's the thing. Like, it's not just like, The Rock decided now to defend his daughter. Like, it's the bloodline. The Rock's going to be taking over the bloodline. Like, it's layers on layers on layers of sense-making storytelling.
Because here's the thing as well, is if Hikuleo took him out, and as I say, I'm saying this very loosely, I don't know much about Hikuleo, but if he's the hired hitman by Dwayne, who's defending his daughter, whatever the case may be, Eddie Thorpe's been so hard done by, he's going to let all his rage out on Hikuleo, because Hikuleo is going to become an avatar for Ava.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Cool story to tell there. Or... You tell a story where Ava doesn't want her dad's help. She runs NXT. She's got a lot of things at her disposal. She's got a whole roster at her disposal. She goes and finds somebody to do her bidding for her, to be her henchman, to take out this guy that she thinks tried to take out her. And the reward for that person is a potential world title match for somebody who hasn't been in the world title situation yet.
Ooh,
the guy that took out... Eddie Thorpe, the 5th member in the Iron Survivor match, becomes Obafemi.
Oh, so now we kind of passed over
Obafemi will boot fuck Trick Williams to the main roster.
Yeah, no kidding. He'll send him home.
Because you got to remember, not only is he motivated by, I'm sure, they don't really play around with him being a good guy or a bad guy, but you could play it off as, hey, I might be a big warrior and whatever, but you shouldn't be laying your hands on women.
On women, yeah. That's a face turn for him.
It doesn't necessarily.
It doesn't have to be, but it could be.
Think about old mafia movies. Even the mafia says, we don't touch the women, we don't touch the children, and they're not good guys.
No.
But if he's
a couple of wise guys, but
he's pissed off because he knows that his title shouldn't be around Tony D's waist. He's got some aggression to get out. He sees something that he seems to be wrong in, hey, this guy laid his hand on a woman who happens to be my boss, who happens to dangle a carrot in front of me, and all the frustration he's been building since the last time we saw him gets taken out on 4 guys that, let's be real, he could eat for lunch.
Yeah, that he could just take out, destroy, and be done with, yeah.
Other than that, I have no idea.
All right,
Who the replacement could be.
I'm kind of with you for the most part. Like I chose it that way, just kind of, like, hey, if he doesn't win, this is what happens. But I'm pretty much sold on the fact of, like, this is what we're getting, and I think if it's Thorpe, it'll be Thorpe. But if it's a replacement, it's going to be the replacement. I really don't know that they're necessarily going to go with Ethan Page unless it's a triple threat.
Yeah.
I don't see that necessarily being the way for them to go currently. I don't know.
I do think it's a pretty good thing because everybody has a role, right?
Yeah, because
Javon Evans is scraping towards the title. Nathan Frazier is. I think this is going to be the last match of the night. So I'm making my prediction based on that. Nathan Frazier will be full of piss and vinegar because he's just broken up with his tag team partner and lost his titles. Wes Lee is still gearing very slowly into this heel turn. Like, he hasn't quite hit full gear yet, no pun intended. But for the first 15 minutes, these guys who can go 100 miles an hour are going to get a chance to go 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, they're going to be able to go nuts.
Out comes the spoiler with Ethan Page. And then out comes the story, because either Eddie Thorpe is the story or Eddie Thorpe's replacement is the story. Because like I said, it goes back to the Trick Williams thing. I don't think you take out two guys and have them both pop up like they're perfectly fine on Saturday.
Yeah.
Once is fine. One guy is a babyface for one thing, and he's got a title to defend, and he's even if it's not the main event, it's seen as the main event. Like, there's a lot more adrenaline to get Trick Williams up off his feet and back in the ring than necessarily Eddie Thorpe. I don't think they do it twice. The story is Eddie Thorpe, or the story is Eddie Thorpe's replacement. And as far as my predictions go, my prediction is Eddie Thorpe or Eddie Thorpe's replacement.
Yeah. So you're not wrong, and I that's the thing. I just keep coming back to the same. It's got to be Thorpe. It's got to be Thorpe's replacement. It has to be one of the two.
So if I'm going up the list now, I've got Jada Parker, No Quarter Catch Crew, Trick Williams, possibly with some bullshit, Sol Ruca, and whoever's in the Eddie Thorpe spot.
Yes.
I think we lined up on this one a lot more than we have on a
yeah. The only difference I have than you is Lola Vice. I mean, if it's just like, oh, Eddie Thorpe's going to try, but he's destroyed, then I could see Ethan winning. But like I said, more than likely it's Eddie or whoever takes the Eddie spot. And that has layers to it, too. I mean, you got people thinking that he and Shawn are going to go head-to-head. So
yeah,
anything is possible.
See, I thought very briefly when they said Bischoff and X-Pac were going to be on NXT, I thought, like, okay, if X-Pac's feeling up to it, are they just going to throw like a random Eddie Thorpe versus X-Pac exhibition match on the pay-per-view?
Yeah,
which I wouldn't be against, by the way.
No, certainly not.
But I mean, if Eddie Thorpe and Ava are still going to have a feud, like, how much does it get under her skin that this guy that potentially just did this horrible thing to her now might be the title holder of your company?
Gets to kind of be rewarded.
Or
That's
she
not
gets
a great
to pick his
feeling.
replacement. And I mean, if you have any other suggestions, then fine. But his replacement is potentially Obafemi, Pentagon, or Hikuleo as far as my list goes.
I mean, if it was Penta, that'd be great. They just risk one kind of harming Phoenix, I feel, a little bit in a way, because if they don't come together and be that package deal, then you could be harming him. I don't know necessarily that's the case.
Okay,
but...
not to be a petty little child.
Yes.
I think him coming out and doing stuff a little bit solo, maybe getting a little active on social media, because that never hurts.
No, certainly.
It'll just put a highlighter on what a dick Tony Khan is being to Phoenix.
Okay.
And maybe you sort of strong arm him into changing his mind.
Maybe.
I'm not saying
or
like
could make
blackmail.
it worse for
I'm not saying. Well, what's worse? They're not doing anything with him right now.
Yeah,
you can't
I know.
You can't be
You're
less
not
than
wrong.
0.
Yeah. Exactly. look at Starks. Look at we've seen it all.
You can't be less than. Yeah, they're all being picked on for the same reason. Let's be real for a second.
Yeah. He knows that. Hey, you went out afterwards. You're not going anywhere.
On that delightful note, hey, we did make it all the way to the 9 o'clock mark. Almost. Spaz is tired. Spaz is very tired. This is going to be a really fun show. Please, everybody within the sound of my voice, go subscribe to Jake Countdown Ended DeMarco. We're going to be live streaming after Deadline this Saturday or Sunday?
This Saturday, yeah.
Saturday.
You know,
Sorry, I lost it.
We're
for
going
a
to be
second.
having a great time together, and I don't feel bad. I had to double check myself when I put up the stream because I'm like, wait, is it Sunday? I thought it was Saturday. Like, you have to, with the way they do things nowadays, you really got to be
I do
sure.
like the fact that we've pulled away from the I mean, it's been happening for a while now.
Yeah.
But as a whole, wrestling has pulled away from that Sunday is the pay-per-view night cliche.
Which at first felt very, very bizarre, unnatural, and odd, and now it's gotten to a point where I'm like, hell yeah, we don't need Sunday. I prefer Saturdays now. It's like I'm not having a rush Sunday morning or Monday morning. You know, you're exhausted.
Well, I mean, it's whatever people want goes now, because not only have they proved that Saturdays work, I think they thought at the time when it was a TV ratings thing that like most people are home on Sunday because they got to go to work on Monday. But we don't want to be staying up late and watching a wrestling show if that's the case. You're going to we're going to be tired, or we're going to be
have to tune in the next day. And they saw that by
we're going to be watching.
We're getting a lot on
Sunday
YouTube,
series,
but not live viewership. And they saw with Saturdays the viewership went up.
And you see, I don't know whether it was Mike Johnson. It was somebody from PW Insider or No DQ. Basically, doubled down and confirmed that when they go over to Netflix, if they're in other countries, the pay-per-views and the weekly shows are going to air whenever they air.
Yeah, live in their areas, respectively.
Which is awesome, man.
Which is how it should have been to begin with. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, TV.
No, but since the network has been established, that's really in my eyes how it should have been.
They did it with the pay-per-views. Because pay-per-views
some,
fluid,
but even
right?
not all. Like, they still moved some things at times that was awkward and made it. You know, and it was like I remember having the special and it was on at like 4 a.m. for the Japan show with Lesnar and New Day and
Beast in the East.
Like that. Yes. And it was like,
how do I remember that off the top of my fucking head?
That was a great callback, but yeah, I'm looking forward to NXT. It's not like a be all end all show either, where it's imperative to see, and this is going to be like but this has so many implications of what's happening both on the build to their WrestleMania in the form of Stand and Deliver, and it's also really developing pretty much the future of what we're going to see as far as who's going to be the champion where, who's going to be competing for said titles, and what we're going to get more on NXT as they continue to win week over week.
And there's always the conversation of anybody that's in a prominent position and loses could be going to the main roster. That's always a conversation we can have as well. And think about it, next week, I won't be around to do the live stream for it afterwards, but we do have a preview to do for Saturday night's main event as well, which is also stacked.
And I will be live after that. You know, you will not be here, but at least you'll be able to put the audio up afterwards. And it's great to have that.
Thank you for reminding me. Now. Anybody not able to join us live on Saturday for the live streaming review of the show, watch your audio feeds, your iTunes, your Spotifys, your Rumbles, etc. I will be uploading the audio as a podcast as well, so if you're not able to join us on the night, you can still catch it afterwards. It seems to me like people are enjoying that as an option, so that's also very cool.
I've been hearing some good feedback. So a couple people reached out to me on Twitter and they're like, hey, I didn't get to catch you live, but I do listen to Spaz on Spotify, and it's been really cool to have that option. Cool. So I forgot to tell you that earlier today. But yeah, I was like, hey, that's awesome to have people not only reach out, but let me know, like, hey, I've been listening to you guys do the previews and reviews, and I like being able to. He's like, I work third shift. I can't catch it live.
Oh, yeah.
But I do like to go ahead and catch things. So, Jason, that's for you, and you guys have been awesome, just tuning in, hanging out, and that's really what it's all about.
And one more humble brag for me, and you guys are going to be hearing about this for the next 3 fucking months.
Yeah.
I got my ticket to Chamber, baby.
Woo!
Chamber in the Dome. It's going to be good. Seriously.
Were you giving Dome too? What did I miss? No, Chamber, baby.
Anybody who's going to Elimination Chamber in Toronto, get in my inbox, get in my comment section, however you want to do it. I would love to see some of you guys. I would love to shake some hands. I would love to high five and fist bump some people and say hello to some people. If you're going to be in Toronto, if you're going to be in the Sky Dome for Elimination Chamber, let's make it a party. I'm going to be bragging about it.
You said you'd meet them at what, stall 7 in the men's room? The meeting spot?
It better the hole better be really big in.
You need
in
a few finger taps. You know that. Hey.
No fingering. I stopped doing that after my doctor told me it wasn't advisable.
Before you get to the fingering, you gotta summon them and let them know that, hey, I'm here for a good time. You just tap your foot a few times.
But if you start fingering, then you're here for a good time, not a long time. Jake, tell them where to find you.
You can find me on YouTube. That's right, youtube.com/Jake DeMarco or Countdown Ended. Either or will work. You can find me on Twitter at the same @Countdown Ended. And you find me here on the Spaz Feeding channel for the State of Wrestling and our NXT previews and reviews. And every now and again we laugh at AEW.
Ha. Maybe not. It's like kicking a dead dog now, and that that makes me think of Larry. And Larry's got merch on WWE Shop now, so it's awesome.
He does. He's got
That's
Christmas
fucking
merch.
great. I will buy a stuffed Larry before I will buy a product produced by Tony Khan. And you guys know where to find me, or you wouldn't be here. I've been Spaz. This has been Jake. This has been your NXT Deadline preview. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later. But for right now, me and Sexy Jake are tagging out. Bye, guys.
NXT.